Hey everybody, so we are so glad to be with you. I have the privilege today of talking to Lisa Hennessy, who is the Chief People Officer of Happy Money. And Lisa and I and her team have had the privilege of going through the process in the last, I guess, year, almost a year and a half, Lisa, I think, as I look back at it, of helping the Happy Money team and organization exit from a PEO. And so this conversation today is going to be what that experience was like, and hopefully for those of you who are potentially considering something like that, to learn from Lisa and some of the key takeaways that she had, and maybe recommendations that she might offer to you as you think about that. But before we get into it, Lisa, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself to us and give us a sense of who you are and what you guys are about at Happy Money?
Yeah, that's great. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. So I've been practicing HR for over a decade. I've spent time on the financial services and technology industries, which has been a great segue into Happy Money, where I lead the people and culture team. Happy Money is a fintech. Our vision is to create tools and services for human happiness. And our mission really is to help our members eliminate debt, which, credit card interest is the saddest spend, and move from borrowers to savers, which really saving is the happiest saving and giving. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. Love it. And I love the mission of Happy Money. It's a really special, meaningful kind of work you guys are doing. So, all right, you were with, and we'll just go with the nameless PEO, but one of the big three.
One of the big three. And
it just wasn't working. So we'll have a lot of questions around this, but the first is, what was the big thing that you saw in the organization that got you to think, you know what, I don't think this is the right model for us going forward?
Yeah, it was probably within my first couple of weeks, to be honest. I was trying to pull data just for my information on how I could get the landscape of the people within the company. And it was so hard. It was so hard to just get what I needed from the system that I was really frustrated. I found myself quickly frustrated. And I was also struggling with the customer service model and the lack of getting what I needed as the head of HR, that to help the CEO and to help my peers understand where we're at from a people perspective. And so that was my first trigger.
Just basic reporting. You just couldn't get what you needed.
Basic reporting.
Yeah. Okay. And then from a scale, was it like, okay, scaling, we can't grow our business, customer service? Was there anything, presumably you talked to the PEO, like, hey, can you guys change something? Or was it just was it just a basic thing about that kind of HR infrastructure that you felt like just wasn't a fit, or was it like a vendor issue in particular?
It was a big vendor issue. I think it was both. So the vendor issue was around, we weren't using a lot of the services that go with the PEO bundle. Mm-hmm. So employee relations, that was something we were doing internally because our team member experience is really important to us. And it was very expensive when I dug into it, and I couldn't figure out where all the cost was going. And so when I dug into that, and then I was introduced to Burnham, that's when I think things started to come together in terms of, I knew something wasn't right and something wasn't working for us. And I think it just started to come off in layers as we met you.
Yeah. So for the sake of our audience here, I'll kind of frame the conversation, around kind of the process that we took you guys through, and also just to set the frame for the process that I think anybody should go through when they're evaluating a PEO exit. So the first of the three steps is a financial analysis, like financial validation. So this is kind of what you're getting to, is sort of a lack of transparency around how much you're actually spending. What is my labor burden inside versus outside of the PEO? So what did you guys learn in that process? Was it more expensive, less expensive to leave?
So the year one is about the same. It's neutral, but over time, it's going to be a cost savings. It was a percentage of our payroll, and we were growing. To give perspective, we went from 130 people when I started, and a year later, we had more than doubled.
Yeah, you guys were blown up.
Yeah, and so as you got that percentage of payroll, it just continued to climb in terms of our financials. The thing that's most attractive, I think, of a PEO is that you get pooled for your benefits, and so you get really great rates and a lot of offering.
Mm-hmm.
But it was to the point where we were adding so many employees, it was confusing for our new hires. It was confusing for me. Around the offering was just, there were so many options. It was confusing for people.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that really triggered us to think about partnering with someone who had the industry contacts and credibility to help us figure out the benefits portion.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that for a second. You and I have kind of joked in the past about like what it is to get it, when you have what feels like 100 benefit options. It's like going to the Cheesecake Factory, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, I don't know, I'll have the tacos. It's just, there's just too many options. Can you, just as an HR professional, HR leader, can you talk through that, like the perception of, gosh, I want to take care of my people, make sure they have a lot of choices, but like the point at which it becomes this decision fatigue? What's the balance there?
Yeah, I mean, you want enough where people feel like, depending on their personal needs and family and dependents, that they can get what they need. But when you have too many, people don't know which way to go. And so it is kind of I'll take this one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember how many vendors we had in terms of carriers. And it was
eight or 10 maybe.
Yeah. Oh, so
yeah.
I still remember we were looking at the analysis, and we were peanut buttered throughout. The whole company was peanut buttered throughout all of these different medical providers. And what someone on my team said, Lisa, why did you pick that one? Why would you pick that? And I was like, I don't know. I just got overwhelmed and I picked one.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot through this process in terms of what it means to give focused options for people so they can be smart consumers and make smart decisions for themselves and their family.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching part one of our conversation with Lisa. Hope it's been helpful for you. I wanted to just underscore a couple of quick points before we move on to the second part of our conversation. And that is just to reiterate the 3 steps that any company should go through when they're evaluating whether or not PEO is right for them. So again, financial validation, practical validation, and then the exit roadmap. Okay, so financial validation is, again, an analysis of what is this costing me to be in the PEO versus what will it cost for us to be out of the PEO. And here's what I'll tell you from our experience, and we have done a lot of these things, like more than 20 at least. And that's this. In every single case, without exception, the financial analysis always comes down to the employee benefits. You're nearly almost always going to save money on the administrative fees. That part's kind of easy. It's going to be a question of whether or not the benefits are more or less expensive outside the PEO, and those could be huge numbers, and so it really drives the conversation. Here's a big mistake people make, is they go down the line too far. They're thinking, okay, I might want to be looking outside of using PEO for our company, we're growing or whatever, and then they skip to step 2. They don't actually check the box on, does this make sense financially? And so they end up wasting a lot of time when it actually might not be a fit. Now, I'll tell you, it is most of the time a fit financially, but it's still an important thing for you to do, because presumably other people in the C-suite of the organization are going to want to know that before you spend all this time picking your payroll vendor. But that's actually not the first thing to do. The first thing to do is check the financial validation box, okay? So hope that's helpful. Hope that saves you some time. Stay tuned for the second part of our conversation with Lisa, where we talk about step 2 of the process, which again is a practical validation, meaning which vendors are we going to use? What is the process to select them? How do we integrate that part of the process into the overall process? And Lisa shares some really good insights. So thanks for being with us, and we'll see you on the other side in part 2.